It's Mr. Thomas, back again to talk about one of my favorite films of all time, The Crow, starring the late Brandon Lee, who is son of legendary martial artist Bruce Lee. And being that this is the month of Halloween and it is October, I decided to talk about this film because it is one of my favorite films of all time. It's also based upon a comic book / graphic novel of the same name done by James O'Barr, which came out back in the late 80s all the way to the mid to late 90s. Now, to address the elephant in the room, this film is mainly remembered because this is the film that cost Brandon Lee his life, to where he was quote unquote accidentally shot and killed by a prop gun. Granted, he already filmed most of his scenes. It was just that one incident that pretty much robbed the world of what could have, would have, and should have been the greatness of Brandon Lee, being that he was poised to become the next big breakout action star of the 90s. So, RIP to this day, Brandon Lee, we still miss you. Now, in this film, Brandon Lee plays the role of Eric Draven, a musician who's brought back from the dead by his crow that gives him mysterious powers. And the reason being is because he and his fiancée Shelly were brutally murdered the night before their wedding night by this ultraviolet gang that's led by this criminal mastermind by the name of Top Dollar. And once Eric comes back from the grave, well, all bets are off. Everyone that was responsible for robbing him of his happily ever after with Shelly, let's just say that any and everything that he does to the bad guys he encounters is justified. And man, oh man, it is so sweet to see it happen. But this film did not feel like a straight up comic book adaptation or basically a comic book / superhero film at all. It was more of like three films rolled into one: action film, revenge film, but most importantly, it was also a tragic love story. And it really cuts deep when you look at just two people that are so in love with each other and plan on living out the rest of their lives together, and it was just taken from them. And with that, also being that this is Brandon's last film, and then when the end credits start to roll, you just can't help but feel just a bit tad emotional because, hey, that seems to be the perfect ending to a love story. But if you haven't seen this, hey, I advise you to watch it. Now, granted, there are three other films that came after this, and by all means, believe me when I tell you, avoid those at all costs. Now, there was a television series called The Crow, Stairway to Heaven, starring another one of my favorite martial artists by the name of Mark Dacascos in it. And it only ran for maybe like one season. And it ran in syndication back in the 90s, I believe from like 98 to 99. And it's definitely worth checking out. Granted, it's not as brutal or graphic as its R-rated counterpart, but definitely worth seeing. And even, yes, I've also heard that they're planning to do a reboot of this film, but that's not surprising. But if you've never seen this film, it would behoove you to just give it a look-see and just admire the cinematography and the greatness and appreciate the talent of the late Brandon Lee himself. Well, that's all I have for this one. Feel free to like, share, comment, hit that subscribe button. And till next time, I'll see you on the next one.